Good, bro. Yeah. Chopping it up over here with Colin on the slow grift.
Yeah, we're back.
Back today.
How you doing?
Doing good. Doing good. It's March 10th. The
Sorry, you broke up there. What would you say?
2 years ago. And we're still wearing masks.
Oh, yeah, it is almost 2 years. 2 years to celebrate the spread. Let's celebrate it, right? Let's not slow. We're not slowing shit at this point. Let's just, it's a party, all right? No, actually, we got 2 wars to stop the spread. I think that's the new hashtag.
One up and one left to go.
Yeah,
I think it'll be Taiwan.
Yeah, it could be.
Sure
it could be 2
Taiwan.
wars: Ukraine versus Russia and the U.S. versus Russia. But actually,
no. China.
That is China. One more. Yeah,
China's gonna take Taiwan. Yeah. April showers bring May flowers.
That's And June blood brings July floods, right? You could save that one for later. I don't know if that works, but
it works.
Well, I think there's a linkage for why we're probably in this predicament, as you know, the thumbnail suggests. You know, we got some beta cuck leaders running the show, and I mean, I don't know who actually among them is the king beta.
We dropped out.
I don't. Did I drop out? Oh no.
You're good. Yeah, I hear you. Yeah.
I don't know who the king beta is here, but it's I don't think it's any of these guys.
It's got to be the shadow president, the Obama. He's got to be. He's got the crown.
Dude, think of all the times when he would say, "Oh, Michelle's so much better than me," and that's all he would. He would always preface, like, he would cuck himself to Michelle every time. You remember that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, still does.
So you're right. Yeah, he is kind of.
Yeah, now we got Biden doing the same. You know?
Oh God, Joe's so much better. Okay, Joe. All right. It's not endearing anymore. No, I don't think it ever was. But so we have some things that it's just trends that I've been noticing, especially more recently within the fellow male population, where a lot of the time you're just like, dude, what? No one's standing up, no one's speaking out. Or very few people are, and you're just like, why? Is every guy actually this afraid, or is it more just they're afraid of speaking out more so? And it seems like that's been more of the heart of the issue with a lot of COVID. Well, I'm just saying, like, just a lot of guy friends that I know who they know it's bullshit, but they just are too afraid to say anything or to kind of go too outwardly against the narrative, because then you'll be one of those guys, and I think a lot of people, what's that?
They'll be like, who? What?
They'll be one of the anti-vax, like the conspiracy if they speak out, they will be ostracized. And I think a lot of people in general are afraid of disapproval because it's scary. It's scary to actually be authentic when it has consequences,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And
I think there's that, just because, like,
what's that?
There's a big difference between, like, being afraid to speak out because you're living under authoritarian, climate, versus being afraid to speak out because you are afraid you'll be the person that you hate, which to me is like a severe either mental
lost you there.
Where you can't be like, you can't be confident enough in yourself to know that you won't become like the thing you hate. And I don't know if that made sense, but
well, yeah, I mean, so yeah, we all have kind of that side of ourselves that it becomes more, you're vulnerable because you're being more in touch with that side of yourself, which for a lot of people, because they suppress it, they're afraid of it. Is that kind of what you're saying? And like, it could get in their mind, they haven't tamed the inner, side of themselves, basically.
In a way, I think
man, you keep breaking
someone that's afraid of speaking out because of the way they're going to be perceived. I can understand like that World War II era kind of fear of speaking out because you're going to die if you speak up, or you're going to
you're going to be targeted.
Right. You'll be imprisoned or,
but that's a classic thing though. It's like, if they didn't speak out when they took the Jews, and then they didn't speak out like that. I know I'm paraphrasing, but
yeah, the poem, it was in V for Vendetta, that whole poem.
Oh, interesting.
That came from me, or
but it's just like, it's that progressive, like, I'm afraid. It starts with, I'm afraid of social disapproval, and then it ends up with straight up totalitarianism, because you just complied, didn't speak out, and just submissively agreed to things that you didn't actually agree with. And then you get to that point. So before we get there, because we're on a path right now, I think, as a society, in a lot of ways, that I'd like to shift. I don't want no great reset, not on those terms. So
you're saying you would like to have a reset, but not on the path that it's going.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone knows we need to do some things differently, for sure. A full-on reset, I don't know if I even want, like, what that means, but individually, locally, sure, absolutely. And it would be great. It'd be great. Let's make the reset great again.
Yeah, like, let's maybe reset how we govern ourselves,
Yeah,
or how those institutions function, or how corporations make money.
Well, if you want to,
once is just a population reset.
Oh yeah, they want everything. I mean, it's all. Do you want to share screens so I can?
Yeah. I want to share a quick clip before I know you.
Yeah. Oh right. Yeah. You gotta. Yeah, we have to rotate.
It's like, when did Cuck start to become into? When did it creep into your consciousness?
It's. I'm curious if you have a similar clip to myself, but I would say, for me, it was probably within the last few years that I really started using it. And but yeah, I mean,
went to your clan meeting.
What's that?
Since you started your clan meetings?
My clan meeting? No.
Okay. Yeah, I was hearing a lot of it in the Great Meme War of 2016.
Yeah.
And I think, like, potentially this clip here might just give you were saying, Cuck leaders, and thank God we avoided this one.
I think the next president needs to be a lot the interests of this country, to get back in the business of creating a more peaceful world. Please clap.
Dude, that was I mean, you usually associate Beta energy beta cuck with like left wing, but yeah, there's beta cucks on all sides. Let's not forget that guy.
Conservative.
Please, that's so sad.
Please clap.
Oh,
Sad man. But yeah, let's get into what you got. Because I'm curious.
All right, cool.
I've been waiting 2 days to figure out what's going on.
Well, since you said that, this are we on it? Okay.
Yep.
This first clip is from I think 2016 when Trump was pretty much the nominee at this point. And this is an explanation about what a cuck is from this outlet Mic Check. Or what is it? Is it Mic Check? Mike. So let's see what cuck is according to this guy.
There's a new word in town.
You know what they like to call people today? I've noticed cuck. It's like the kids on the internet have found a new insult.
You can hear it coming over the horizon like a swarm of angry geese. Cock, 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 cock.
Before we even get started, let's be clear. Doing a video on the word cuck is the most cuck thing in the world. I'm the cuckiest cuck this side of Cuckopolis. I know, I'm aware. I'm about to cuck myself. Cuck comes from the word cuckold. By definition, a cuckold is a guy whose wife cheats on him.
You've made a cuckold of me.
I know.
Over time, getting cheated on became a fetish, and naturally, it's led to a substantial amount of interracial cuckold porn.
White husband watches his wife get rammed by a large black man.
So labeling someone a cuck became a way to emasculate them. If you're a cuck, you're beta, you're weak, you're effeminate, you're a white knight beta cuck. You're me. Two groups in particular have really latched.
This guy has, it's part of his act to have this self-awareness about it, but it's funny with all the sides he does. This guy, he's a cuck, right?
Yeah.
Let this cuck explain. I
think he's really a cuck.
What's that? Oh, you broke up.
Cuck by virtue of pretending to be a cuck to do a story about cuckery.
Yeah, there's meta cuckery going on.
It is
really weird.
Onto the word. The good, wholesome folks at 4chan who use the word to offend any guy they deem submissive or weak.
Ultimate cuck.
And ultra right-wing conservatives who use the word to offend any conservative they deem submissive, compromising, or weak.
Please clap.
Suddenly, any self-described conservative who did something even slightly socially progressive, like accept someone based on race, religion, or sexual orientation, was cucky. When Paul Ryan called out Donald Trump for being anti-Semitic, he was called a cuck-servative. Basically, the options became be racist or get cucked.
That's a totally it's a fair dichotomy to make, right? It's either you're a racist or you're a cuck. There's no in between.
Right.
Love it.
It must be put forth by the ADL or something.
Something, man.
Next thing you know, you're a cuck-servative if you're a race mixer, like Nick Searcy was getting in trouble for adopting a black kid. Or you're a cuck-servative if you're Ezra Levant and you're Jewish and you don't hate Israel.
Now the term is used to describe anyone who's socially progressive. In fact, Urban Dictionary, where middle schoolers go to learn the active verb of Houdini, defines a cuck as a demasculated millennial liberal male who often speaks of white privilege and modern feminism, which is like my whole brand.
Again, what? Why? Dude, I don't even know.
Have you watched any more of what this guy does?
No, I haven't. I should. I was meaning to look up Sage Boggins or whatever the hell his name is.
Yeah, I wonder if he's like being genuine or if this is just all satire.
Yeah. Part of it is, but then a part of it isn't because, like, all the things he's saying is very cucky, but
yeah, he's got cuck pride.
Oh yeah, cuck. Ooh, hashtag.
Anything bad about other white people, you're definitely cuck. That's why Louis C.K. has been crowned Cuck King.
Everything that we introduce to the world is shitty. Meaning white people.
So now it's like, oh, you think women deserve equal pay? You're a cuck. Oh, you think Black Lives Matter? You're such a cuck. Oh, you're Donald Trump? Miraculously, you're the only person who's not a cuck. It's almost like his campaign had a hand in incubating this entire offensive, ugly cuck culture. A small hand. He has very small hands. Cuck is an effective insult because it looks like every other ultra-offensive word wrapped into one and covered in weird sexual racist overtones. But people use it so often now, it doesn't even mean anything.
I see people calling people cucks all the time. They're using it so often, even though it's not really applicable, and they're doing it because it's a new one. Like, we got a new one. Yes.
Well, feel free to call me a cuck in the comments. I already know you will. I want you to. This is your mic check.
I want you to, and let me just. I want a little cherry on top here for following along. Mic check. Oh, I want you to call me a cuck in the comments. Comments are turned off. Oh. Now, if that ain't meta cuck, I don't know what is.
Is he a dom or a sub? What's the deal with this guy?
I don't know. I mean, he's got it's not the worst attempt at this explanation. Some decent editing. But if you
okay, yeah. Decent.
If you want the worst definition that I could find, let's go head on over to MTV Impact. I'm sure you guys are all familiar with this YouTube channel because it gets like 20 views per video. It's ridiculous. Although this one, which got ratioed, and you can't see it anymore. This is. Let's just see what the kids are learning over at MTV these days. See if it's very down to earth. You can tell already. It's going to be the look on her face.
You pack hundreds of years of racism, sexism, and misogyny into just 4 letters. C-U-C-K.
Woo!
If you've been online recently, you might have noticed the word cuck being thrown around.
Wow.
Not to be confused with that man.
I'm not. So, okay. I have to say here that cuck, I heard it way back when it's been around in literature. Cuckold, like Shakespeare, Chaucer. It's been around. And I remember knowing what that term meant when I believe that was the Royal Tenenbaums with Bill Murray.
Yep.
Yeah. And then so when I heard it a few times just on like some videos of maybe streams or like people ranting or whatever, I kind of intuitively was like, that's a good insult. What I did not know is how much it's talked about.
Dude, I had no idea. Here I am.
Deer horns in the back. The symbology in the back.
Yeah, she's got a little corona over there too, huh?
That too. Yeah, but I didn't realize how many people have done like in-depth cuck analysis.
Yeah, well, it's very similar is what you're going to notice. So clearly there was a counter narrative to how cuck was being thrown around on Reddit and 4chan at the time, which I was not privy to be honest. So like I'm saying, my use of the word cuck is more recent. I think I just I was a late to the term as much as like I've been using it more because I've been seeing it more. So I think COVID really brought out the inner cuck in some people, man. I agree to a point where I mean, it's funny to hear this version because it was around the lens of Trump and all that. But I mean,
if that's the case, then I'm willing to guess the narrative is misogyny.
Yep. You can figure where this is going.
White supremacy. Probably anti-Semitic, probably, which is ironic to me because let's just go. Maybe that thought's not worth it.
Male chicken. You're a man who identifies as a feminist? Cuck. Don't like Donald Trump? Cuck. Someone who likes a certain MTV web series host that you don't like? Cuck. To understand the history of cuck, look no further than
like, girl, I don't think anyone really cares about you.
Yeah, I've never heard of her.
This is painful. It gets worse.
Intertwined components, misogyny and racism.
There you go.
The key ingredients in America's favorite sandwich. Now, before we get into Cuck's modern usage, we have to go all the way back to the innocent cuckoo bird. Cuckoo birds usually lay their eggs in other birds' nests and leave them there to be raised. During the Middle Ages, that otherwise benign bird became a symbol for a husband with an unfaithful wife. From cuckoo came cuckold, which literally means a man whose wife has slept with another man and then raises a child who is not his. Long before guys on Reddit got a hold of the phrase, cuckolds were a staple in English literature. Shakespeare loved to use men's fear of becoming a cuckold as a plot point. Cuckolds even happen in rap music. Take Kanye West's Gold Digger. 18 years, and on her 18th birthday, he found out it wasn't his. Over time, the shortened version of the word cuck became more common, and that's likely because of two of America's favorite pastimes, racism and pornography. Cuckold, or cuck, became used to refer to a genre of porn where husbands, usually white, watch their wives have sex with another man, usually black. Not only is she cheating on you, but she's cheating with a man who's perceived as racially inferior.
You know, I honestly, until I saw both of these videos, and because I wasn't, you know, privy to this term or using it around the time of, you know, Trump's election, I never made an association inherently with race. Like,
well, that's I think what she's saying here is that's how it's that's like the subcategory of porn.
Oh, that's true. I mean, it is, but even I feel like cucking isn't always it isn't always a black guy. I mean, that's common. I think.
No, it wasn't back in Shakespeare's day. That's for sure. And then as far as
the modern,
bird,
but I mean, it is. Yeah, it is interesting. It is promoted, obviously, in porn in that respect. But it's just funny how then they tie that into like the whole picture of Trump or anything else.
Well, yeah, it serves their narrative for sure. To
There's
just
two versions of cucking, and we're going to apply that term to everything to make you not use it.
Yeah, and I'm wondering too, like as far as the pornography goes, I mean, what percentage of pornography is produced by small hats who are then creating the narrative, the racial narrative through porno?
Yeah, no,
because that'll seep into a person's mind much quicker than these MTV videos or Mr. Boggs over there or any other, you know, Huffington Post writer, whoever is not going to be able to paint the racial picture as well as pornography. So all they're doing is is cleaning up, per se.
Well, it's part of the dialectic. Those guys probably know that they'll have people such as this woman to like argue against it, but in a disconnected way, and to prove a very specific point that is not really even that like directly connected, you know?
Yeah.
Like, you can't say interracial cuckold porn is related to MAGA like that directly. I mean, you can make some lines if you want, but it's just funny. Like, let's play this out though.
But what leads many guys to use the term isn't just its racist undertones, but, surprise, rampant sexism. Now, if you really want to know where the modern usage of cuck comes from, remember that pickup artist scene from the early 2000s? That mystery guy? I mean, it's better if you don't, but we got to talk about it. The pickup artist community's main goal was to teach socially awkward men how to lure women using a variety of manipulative techniques. So when it comes to men, pickup artists like to divide them into alphas and betas. An alpha is a guy who
only pickup artists, right? This is where this term came from. Is that my understanding? Alpha and betas came from.
I thought she originally said it came from a cuckoo bird.
Yeah, but now,
which is interesting. That I mean, had she been a journalist or some, you know, any sort of analyst, the cuckoo bird, there's a word for it. It's called parasitic brooding. And yeah, it's where it's not only that they trick the other birds into raising their children, they kill all the other birds of the tricked bird, and then the bird raises cuckoo birds instead of their own, which has very interesting connotations in terms of society now. That maybe is a topic for another time.
Yeah, it's just she's trying to infer modern usage from Mystery, the pickup artist. I'm just
right. Yeah.
Was that guy that influential culturally?
No, this is lazy journalism.
Yeah, it's just like, oh, I remember. Oh, let me just make that point related to
it's MTV after all. They got they probably made an ad for it. They probably run reruns of this show.
Here I am holding a journalistic standard.
No, that's all the sexy desires because his controlling and dominant personality is so attractive to women. That was sarcasm, by the way.
Wow,
Meanwhile,
that's
a beta
terrible.
is a guy who's
just
too
want to point that out. You never, if you have to explain that this is sarcasm, that's never a good line.
No.
That was anger, by the way.
She read the line pretty good. I bet she likes alpha males.
nice to be an alpha, and supposedly is always being used by women and never gets laid. Being taught to respect women is referred to as betafying, and a beta is also often referred to as, you guessed it, a cuck. Essentially,
hey, here we go. Can you run it back 5 seconds? I just look at that equivalency that they're.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah, respecting. So she's virtuing. She's putting something virtue, which is respect. I consider respect a virtue. Respecting women, that's a virtuous act. To then equal that to an insulting pejorative is it's just basically lining up anybody to play the victim if they are insulted, to then view rather than maybe internalize or self-reflect on what they're being insulted for. They just pawn it off as being virtuous. So the more insults you get, the more virtuous you become.
Oh, I see. So somebody called, like, man, Jesus, you sound like a beta cuck right now. Like, yeah, because I'm like Sage Boggs over here. I respect women. Why? Because I say Black Lives Matter. Yeah.
Right. Or even I think like what we're seeing a lot, maybe what I'm seeing a lot is a lot of like criticism towards the Biden administration is just like the vaccine. The more criticism you get, the more side effects you get from the administration, the more it means to those in the cult, the COVIDians, because they haven't gone away.
No, they haven't.
The more criticism the administration gets, the more it's working in their eyes towards this future collective goal that we don't really even know what it is. It's just not dying from climate change, as far as I can see.
Yeah, I just think it's so crazy. Like with this, basically this video and the last video, low key is glorifying beta male. Like, how dare you even use that word? Be like trying to associate. No, it's a good thing to be a beta. Again, encouraging kind of a demasculation as virtuous.
Yeah.
But not saying that, just saying, but here's what they're saying as an insult. That, and it's so weird. It's all, I mean, it's inverted clown world, but it's bizarre.
Yeah, it's like a version of Plato's Cave. Like they're casting shadows on the wall of these horrible people that use this term, even though I've used it plenty of times. I don't think it's just a quick, easy way, like the Urban Dictionary says, for me to just, label something progressive. But also, I think like detrimentally progressive is how I use the term.
Well, you just have to look at this through the lens of like the iron law of woke projection. I don't know if you're familiar with that. I was made aware of it. Basically, everything that they're saying right now is what they actually like. Just read this sentence, like being taught to respect women is referred to as betafying. Just take that as what they themselves are saying. Like everything they're saying is a projection about what they themselves want to do. So everything regarding Trump, oh, he's a dictator. He's going to declare a never-ending state of emergency. He's going to lead us into World War III. And none of that happened during Trump. But 1 year into Biden, look where we're at. he's demented. He's all those things. And then, just because like I stand with Ukraine. Hey, did you know that there's a lot of neo-Nazis there? Yeah, but but I stand with them. Those guys? I thought you were anti-racist. No, that's not just them. And it's just you just get caught in this fucking loop, but which we'll get there. Let's just play out Decoded MTV.
Please.
And a beta is also often referred to as, you guessed it, a cuck. Essentially, to call someone a cuck is to imply that they aren't a real or strong man, as if there's only one way to be a man. Oh my God, masculinity is so fragile.
Toxic. Did she say toxic? Fragile.
No, fragile.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, male fragility. Remember that? Yeah. Look, they couldn't even use a real photo of him.
I was just gonna say that.
I know. Let's use a doll. That's ridiculous.
That's like Stephen Colbert not even being able to spell out Trump in his title.
45. You remember that?
45 Savage, bro.
Yeah, right.
Trump has become the ideal alpha for many men. His ability to succeed, not in spite of, but because of his arrogant and sexist behavior, is sadly inspirational to them. Okay, great. Moving on.
Say that. That's
Why
hilarious.
do people love to say cuck so much? Because of power. To call someone a cuck is an attempt to wield power over them. It implies they're
I don't think so.
not strong and brave.
Not strong. Why are you demeaning being strong? So many. Her attitude is everything.
Yeah.
Everything that's wrong with like the woke.
Strong and brave men do not respect women by protecting them.
Yeah, no, of course not.
What?
No, you need a man who's gonna cower in the corner, ladies. That's a true man. Come on,
it's amazing to me too that we've all just accepted such a digitization of our communication into our lives, and then we insult people for communicating over the internet, like slinging insults from their computer screens. It's like the old keyboard warrior in your basement. It's like, like that's how everybody communicates is through text these days. It's amazing.
Let's roll this out.
Like the person slinging insults from their computer screen. That was also sarcasm. But is it even an effective insult? Maybe, if upholding white supremacy and hypermasculinity is important to you. Otherwise, cuck becomes a lot less powerful when you realize its racist and sexist origins. Like most insults, cuck says a lot more about the person using it than the person being called one. We'll see you next week right here on Decoded.
It's racist and sexist origins when she herself cited it from originating from the cuckoo.
Yeah, no, the origins of yesterday.
Oh, okay.
My realization of my the origins, Mystery, the pickup artist. That's the origin of alpha and beta. Hello. So, unfortunately, that type of mindset is it's pretty common with a lot of people.
Yeah, that's ultimately the definition of a quick grift right there.
Yeah.
Just a little 3-minute popper video. Got great graphics. The animation is great. I give it to them. It's MTV.
Her delivery is fine, but it's not though, because she's just so smug.
She's also reading it for money.
Right.
I would wonder. I'd like to see who her boyfriend is.
Do these people who think they're resisting the patriarchy ever consider the fact that they're getting paid by like Viacom? Who was the guy that was running that shit? It wasn't he kind of like Me Too'd? Colbert talked about him. God, he was the guy. He was the guy. Maybe it was the CBS guy. I can't remember. He died. No, was it Sumner Redstone, that billionaire that owned Viacom or whatever? That if you look up a picture, hold on, let me pull that up real quick.
Yeah,
it's creepy. Just so people know who's paying, at the time anyway, that lady's paycheck, and like this guy's pay. So if this guy, no offense, but if this guy right here, if he's paying this guy,
yeah,
he's. I'm not trying to judge a book by its cover or anything, but
I'm just saying that looks pretty close to some white supremacy.
yeah, I mean, does that remind you of Hannibal, like that guy in the second movie who looks creepy? So you're not fighting the power. No offense.
Yeah,
should be obvious, but so there's. I want to say, doing this episode, I think, there are characteristics you can read a couple characteristics about betas, and they're not all like the worst thing in the world. Because I've had moments where, like, looking back on it, it's like, that's kind of beta behavior. Like, I was kind of more submissive and wasn't asserting myself, and like, everyone wants to think of themselves as the super alpha all the time, but like, you're not. Like, very, very few people are.
Human beings are dynamic. I mean,
yeah, and similar to, like, you can't always be masculine. Like, everyone has feminine and masculine sides to them, and that's perfectly healthy and normal. It's just a matter of, like, we never hear of toxic femininity because it's like, why? Well, yeah, that's silly, and so is
doesn't exist. Yeah, neither of those exist. It's a made up construct. I mean, there can be an imbalance, which I think we've had, is a patriarchal imbalance, but I mean,
it's not presented that way, obviously.
No.
I'm wondering if I want to. So let's roll into. This is a few clips from Academy of Ideas. They do a lot of really in-depth, quick YouTube videos. And I took it from.
They do really good. They're really good at boiling down, like, I would say, a topic that might take a whole semester at a college to understand, and they boil it down to about 15 minutes.
Exactly, like quoting from a lot of deep literature that I wouldn't normally, like, it's a very valuable resource. But they've done a lot of videos on current men in the Western world, and clearly that relates to our topic today. So let's see what they have to say about the current state of men in the Western world.
We argued that due to the demise of the traditional family and an absence of rites of initiation, many boys lack male role models to show them the way to manhood, and so they are emerging into adulthood stuck in what the authors Robert Moore and Douglas Gillette called boy psychology. In this series, we are going to provide a guide for how to outgrow boy psychology and attain manhood. To do this, we are going to look away from contemporary Western culture, which is overwhelmed by ideas which view masculinity as toxic, and approach the topic of manhood from an anthropological point of view. Drawing from David Gilmour's classic book, Manhood in the Making, we will examine what differing cultures across the world have thought regarding the question, what does it mean to be a man? The purpose of this examination will be to isolate the traits, virtues, and attitudes essential to manhood, thereby creating a map of manhood we can use to outgrow our boy psychology and achieve the benefits which, cross-culturally, are the prerogative of the potent man. In the present crisis of masculinity, we do not need, as some feminists are saying, less masculine power. We need more, but we need more of the mature masculine. We need more man psychology. We need to develop a sense of calmness about masculine power so we don't have to act out dominating, disempowering behavior toward others.
Yeah, so I think we're kind of confused. I think most men, I think most people, most men and women are confused about what it means to be a man or a woman.
Sure.
Especially as things have become more fluid, and you have, the transgender issues, and like all those things coming into play, where it kind of I just generally, especially with the labeling of masculinity as toxic, And it's not like they'll say, well, I'm not saying all masculinity. They might say that. But just the idea of masculinity is associated with the patriarchy, war, all of the worst things of society, when in reality, on an individual level, you need these characteristics. And I don't know, growing up, like, I mean, especially in Western society, when do you become a man?
In Western society?
Like, at what point? I mean, is it when you move out of your house, your parents' home? Is it when you go to college? Like, no. Is it when you get a job? Not necessarily.
I don't know. When do you think it should be?
What's that?
When do you think it should be?
Well, I mean, I guess the better question is, how does it come about? Like, how do you become a man? And what does that even mean? Because it's not just being an adult person or like being
it's mystical. It's mystical.
Yeah.
It's ambiguous as well. And I say that even though like other cultures have rites of passage and stuff like that, but even those you can't explain those. Those are also mystical and ambiguous.
Sure.
Sich just that they have an event with a bunch of other men in a ceremony to put it to. I mean, the Western equivalent, which is not even an equivalent, maybe a bachelor party.
Right. Yeah. Rite of passage. I mean,
yeah. I mean,
but it's like it's a cheap version of, like, you don't become a man by like going to a strip club or getting drunk with your friends or like, you know.
Plus you can get married at any age, so it's not really age specific.
Yeah.
Whereas I believe probably in other cultures there's an age. You know, a certain age. I assume at puberty, you know, is when at least I think at least you should start the journey of beginning to think about how to be a man or what kind of man you want to be. You know?
Yeah, and these are questions and ideas I never really thought about until pretty recently, you know, because it's just not really, it's not emphasized, at least like my dad and brother, you know, it's just not in our culture. There's not a context for like, okay, I mean, unless your dad is a hunter and he's going to take you out like on your first hunt and like, oh, you got, you know, that's some rite of passage. I mean, you still kind of have that in, you know, if your family has that, you know, like if they're hunters, but generally speaking, there's not a very clear cut cultural part of like, all right, now this makes you a man, because a lot of that's been inverted or perverted to mean something bad. And
yeah,
clearly that's not the case about masculinity. You know, inherently masculinity is not toxic, right? So let's get to clip 2 here where they talk a little further about what it means to become a man.
Okay.
Throughout history, rites of initiation have assisted boys in the process of separation individuation. Through trials and tests overseen by male elders, the boy dies and is reborn a man. Femininity unfolds naturally, whereas masculinity must be achieved. And here is where the male ritual cult steps in. But in the modern West, adequate male role models capable of initiating a boy into manhood are few and far between. Many men are emerging into adulthood without having left the psychological womb of the mother. As a result of not being taught how to embrace struggle, become self-reliant, and engage in the ceaseless enterprise which cross-culturally is expected of the potent man, many men are consumed by lethargy, the desire to evade reality and escape danger by seeking solace at the mother's side. They are succumbing to what Thomas Gregor in his study of the Mahunaku tribe of Brazil referred to as the desire to take the path back to fusion with the mother and the pleasures of infancy. Or in other words, they are consumed by what Carl Jung called the spirit of regression, who threatens us with bondage to the mother and with dissolution and extinction in the unconscious.
And I just want to point out, again, dealing with inversion, everything's inverted here. Progression, progressive, often is in the male context referred to the spirit of regression. Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
In succumbing to the spirit of regression, we adopt lifestyles antithetical to manhood. One such lifestyle which Jung repeatedly warned of is what in mythological terms is referred to as the incestuous marriage to the mother, whereby one remains in the psychological womb of the mother well into old age. If this situation is dramatized, then there appears before you on the psychological stage a man living regressively, seeking his childhood and his mother, fleeing from a cold, cruel world which denies him understanding. Often a mother appears beside him who apparently shows not the slightest concern that her little son should become a man, but who, with tireless and self-immolating effort, neglects nothing that might hinder him from growing up and marrying. You behold the secret conspiracy between mother and son, and how each helps the other to betray life.
Man, my boy Carl hits hard.
Yeah.
And you see that. I've seen that with a few people. With everyone's probably seen it, like the just inappropriate relationship where you're like, okay, there's being a mama's boy, and then there's being like, this is unhealthy,
Well, Robert down here, you see, he brings up a good point. Show me a gay man who's not a mama's boy.
Who's that, Robert?
I guess Robert Luke. What up, Robert?
Oh,
yeah,
gotcha. Cool.
He said, no offense, but this is just a different form of Freudian theory.
Sure.
Which possibly, but it's also an evolution of Freudian theory. It's explaining Freud a little bit, I think, more poignantly.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I mean, Jung was he was a contemporary, not a protege, or was he a protege of Freud?
Either way, it's usually the first two. Yeah, it's usually the first two you learn when you're talking about analytical psychology.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
they're the OGs.
Yeah.
I think they have a little bit of some solutions here in this clip, maybe.
As the often quoted saying by Michael Hopp puts it, weak men create hard times. Or as David Gilmour summarizes, real men are expected to tame nature in order to recreate and bolster the basic kinship units of their society. That is, to reinvent and perpetuate the social order by will, to create something of value from nothing. Manhood is a kind of male procreation. Its heroic quality lies in its self-direction and discipline. Its absolute self-reliance, in a word, its agential autonomy.
Agential autonomy.
I know. Some deep stuff. Yeah, I mean, there's a part of so what is it, like the hero's journey, Joseph Campbell? Like, you kind of have to, you got to face some demons, you got to be courageous, you can't just retreat and regress, and that's kind of like some degree of courage or bravery, whatever that means, or to challenge yourself. Some context. And I wish there was more of this, and I know there is kind of a return to that, like there are men's groups or like, trying to encourage some type of rite of passage, because I do think it is still very relevant, just to understand what the responsibilities of being an adult and being an adult man. But I think there can be rites of passage on both sides, but
of course, I agree too. But about these men's groups and stuff, isn't that sounds so like Proud Boys, like how Proud Boys.
Oh, I know. Yeah, it gets. Well, that's the problem. It has that association, and I guess it depends who's running the men's group, but because then it gets associated with men's rights and all that. When it doesn't, it might have that association, but at the same time, it's not like, it doesn't have to be based around like necessarily the court system. But that's a separate conversation because there are a lot of issues with that.
And I think like what you said about it being not being able to confront something along the lines of standing up or confronting, hardships or struggles, has been largely taken away by the internet, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Because you can you can sit in your dwelling all day long with the internet. Are having conflict on the internet, such as like shit posting or trash talking on the internet. You're giving yourself a false sense of bravery But, you know, throwing out that post to that person or that reply or, hey, you got, you know, keyboard warrior, come kick my ass if you're so strong. You know, you can talk all the shit that if you were saying that in real life, you'd get hit in the mouth so hard and so fast. Yeah. Depending on who you're talking to.
Yeah. It's a great refuge for cowards or message boards, social media, all of that. Because I mean, I've dealt with that. Granted, I'm still posting online, but it's not anonymous, and I'm not like running in and trolling as somebody who would never say that in person. Like, I'd love to talk in person about this stuff, but you know, you get those people who just use that platform in the most just derogatory way because they're incapable of speaking with you eye to eye. Because they're clearly not secure in their beliefs, but they still need to tell you that you're wrong, you know. But that only you're right, that kind of behavior is enabled by the internet for a lot of people who would never speak out in that way to somebody in person. And I want to bring in my boy.
Before you got smacked around, or you know, B, you got verbally abused. It's like I kind of can subscribe, you know, and the top my toxic masculinity here is that bullies in high school, you know, they serve a purpose. They put a lot of behavior in line, you know, and it doesn't mean that if you're not getting bullied, that doesn't mean that you're acting right or you're a good person, but like, you know, they do quell a lot of bad behavior and like kind of punk deviant behavior as far as adolescents go.
Yeah, and that's just part of like slaying the dragon, you know, like in the hero's journey, so to speak. Sometimes you got a lot of fucking assholes as kids. I mean, I hated high school and a lot of middle school for that reason. And it's hard, but that's part of, you know, you can't put bubble wrap around every single part of life and expect to create resilient adults. And that goes for both men and women. And like, it's the participation trophy. Like, you remember, isn't that so funny? You remember all those, did you get participation trophies? Was that going on when you were?
Nope.
Okay. So I'm a little bit younger than you, because that is so funny. You get that at the end of every season. It's like, here's a trophy. And I always thought like, all right, cool. I mean, this looks cool. What am I gonna like? Even then, it was like, okay, why did you need to give this to me? Well, you did it. What did we do? We won like 2 games.
You're saying as a adolescent, you were questioning your participation trophy.
Yeah, well, yeah. And then think about it. Like, did I hold on to any participation trophies? No, I threw that shit out. Like,
so it's just another waste.
College.
Of resources.
Can you imagine? Did you ever see? This is fun. Did you ever see anybody in college who was like, "Oh yeah, dude, look at all my trophies"? Like, no, it is.
No, did you?
No, because thankfully, I mean, that might be happening more now because it's been betafied, according to Francesca there.
Yeah.
Let's go to my man JP. Let's get him to talk about you know, can you be a virtuous person acting like this?
You're obedient citizen, and then you're asked to violate your conscience a little bit.
Yeah.
And you have to, because you don't have anything other than that persona. And that's obedience. And so a little more obedience is demanded, and you say, okay, well, then you're a little bent, like, because the society is becoming a little bent, and then you're a little weaker. Then you're asked to violate your conscience a little bit more, and you think, well, there's a little less of me, and the pressure's on a little more, and I could have said no before, but I didn't. So you say yes again, and then you say yes again, and then you have a society where 1/3 of the population is informing on the other 2/3. It's hell.
Wow. Yeah, man. Whew.
Wow, let's roll it again.
Yeah, you want it.
I do. I want to hear all that again.
This is again like 2016, 2017 when he came on the scene.
You're obedient citizen, and then you're asked to violate your conscience a little bit.
Yeah.
And you have to, because you don't have anything other than that persona. And that's obedience. And so a little more obedience is demanded, and you say, okay, well, then you're a little bent, because the society is becoming a little bent, and then you're a little weaker. Then you're asked to violate your conscience a little bit more, and you think, well, there's a little less of me, and the pressure's on a little more, and I could have said no before, but I didn't. So you say yes again, then you say yes again, and then you have a society where 1/3 of the population is informing on the other 2/3. It's hell.
It's hell.
Yep, that's what it feels like now. You remember how, dude? I mean, think about it. In L.A., Garcetti, Mayor Garcetti, was shutting people's utilities off and encouraging people to tattle on one another for having parties.
Yeah,
that shit was happening. That. Yeah, and that was crazy. I mean, that just happened in front of our eyes, but it was enabled. I mean, I'm not going to say there's a lot of betas in Los Angeles, but I mean, I'm not going to not say that.
I mean, we don't know.
I just pointed it out, but like, how did we see? Look at the places that got the furthest in the U.S. culturally. Like, are those strong, courageous men or not?
You mean they got the furthest in what?
In the most authoritarian in the U.S. regarding COVID.
We got what? New York, L.A., Washington.
I mean, Portland, Seattle.
All soy boy places.
I mean,
interesting. Yeah.
Well, let's see if.
When he's talking about obedience and just like, it's I can't help but thinking like television and commercials. You want to watch what you want to watch, and you're forced to watch commercials just to get to that next part, And I feel like in some way this programs us all to endure a lot of the nonsense, on the subconscious level.
Yeah.
It's very insane how deep that programming goes.
Yeah, so you tolerate. Well, that's
it's priming the pump to what Jordan's here is talking about.
No kidding.
Yeah, but
his
inflection on his words is just like sometimes he talks like this, and then I don't know what I'm saying.
Well, as shout out to Albert in the chat, like, make your bed, Albert.
Make your bed. How can you go to sleep without a blanket? And I don't understand, but I think I know.
It's not enough for you to have courage. You gotta wake up every day, and then you gotta put your bed back together again. So when you go to bed, it's nice and tidy, and the sheets are all tight in there.
Well, man,
it's too bad because he's got good things to say.
This is Jordan in his prime, though. Let's see what else he has to say.
Because one of the old metaphysical problems is, why would God allow evil into the world? I think, well, maybe God didn't allow evil into the world. Maybe God allowed the possibility of evil into the world. That's different. And maybe the world with the possibility of evil is actually a better world than the world without the possibility of evil. It's something like that, in that maybe a man is better when he's a dangerous man who's being good than he would be if he was just a good man who wasn't capable of being dangerous. And I believe that, because the best men that I've ever met are very dangerous men. You don't mess with them.
Yeah.
So, and you know that as soon as you meet them.
Do you think weak men can be virtuous?
No.
Because I think that when you're weak, let's say that signals that you don't have the options to sin.
Right.
Which is something that creates resentment. And resentment creates corruption.
Mm-hmm.
So in this sequence, do you think that someone without teeth or without the options to sin can be
good? See, that's a real theological question, right? Because the question you're asking is, and this is tied up with the idea of free will and evil. Can a person who doesn't have the option to be evil be good? And I would say no. So maybe that's the reason that, metaphysically speaking, and I don't know where you are when you're speaking metaphysically exactly, but the question of why is there evil in the world is a constant question. It's like, it's possible that without the possibility of evil, there cannot be good. Good requires the possibility of evil.
So when it comes to the topic at hand regarding the beta mindset, when you suppress yourself, your authentic self, in favor of being agreeable and going along to get along and fitting in, all traits that we've seen displayed over the last few years in one form or another, because people were afraid of being labeled something or being in the out group or killing grandma. Those things are what, when you're when you're only going on the one, you only want to play on, oh, I'm just going to go along. I'll be a good person. I'll do whatever everyone else says is good. Because, well, we're all saying it's good. So let's just do, I don't want to rock the boat. That mindset that lends itself to, like Jordan was saying earlier, being obedient to a fault, to where you're just going to obey off a cliff. They say it's for your benefit, for everyone else's benefit. And this mindset of not allowing yourself to say, like, to disobey, or even in your own social circle, whether it's with your family or with your friends, to say, hey, I don't think this makes a lot of sense what they're telling us about this, like what we should be doing. Because that was really, man, it's not as bad as it was now because we got other things to distract people, but disagreeing on that was tense. It still is, but to a point that, like, even you, like, oh, hey, I don't wear a mask. This sort of, oh my God, like, really? Like, that's just my choice still, but you can't choose that. Why? Because you didn't allow yourself that. And, like, yeah, that's for most people. There was never a choice, because they can only be good, whatever that means in the moment. When that allows a lot, like, what's the saying? The road to hell is paved with what? Good intentions. So nice people,
right?
They always have good intentions in their actions, but when you suppress yourself, when you don't allow yourself the ability to disobey because you perceive obedience as a virtue, you're going to end up obeying to a fault, to where you're like, oh, like Jordan's, one thing leads to another, and before you know it, you're obeying with things that you never thought you would, and then you're also pissed at the people who aren't.
Yeah. I think Robert brings up the good thing out here, because we are talking about conflict and adversity. He says without adversity there is no choice, which is very true. You have to choose how you act in the face of adversity. And what Jordan was saying here with virtues, how good men can't, or what do you say?
Weak men can't be virtuous, I think.
Right. Yeah. Because they don't have any moral principle to stand upon, to make a choice behind.
Right. They're not allowed. Well, yeah, they're not allowing themselves to sin. So therefore they're, being, if their only choice is always to be good, then that choice is
not a choice.
It's not a choice. Right. So you're not actually being good, because you didn't ever allowed yourself to connect with the part, the classic image of the angel and the devil, when the nice people are, oh, I'm only going to listen to the angel. And what if that angel happened to, do experiments on dogs back in the day? But hey, he's the good guy. Yeah, come on, listen to me. There's only one. Like, the reason that dynamic is, like, you got the one guy on the left hand and one guy on the right hand, is because if you're only listening to one side, it can't. There's nothing to balance it out, and inevitably the scales become tipped to where, oh, I'm doing a good thing by, what are you doing by locking somebody else up and throwing away the key? What?
Yeah. Yeah, I'd also argue that having virtue or having principles, requires adversity to put those principles to the test. Because if you say you're a principled person and you stand for equality and you stand for certain movements that happen,
they got the sign. They're standing.
But if you're not put into moments of adversity, you can't evaluate those principles that you're standing on. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure.
And
when push comes to shove, aren't those the times when principles matter the most? You know, because again, everyone, it's
Yeah.
a classic example, but everyone thinks they'd be the guy that wouldn't, you know, Heil Hitler. But it's obvious it's not the case. The vast majority of people would. The vast majority of people go all the way with the Milgram experiment, and they shock the guy till he dies.
Yes,
Like,
and I think that's why. I think that's why we're seeing like these people create these false narratives of white supremacy, racism, misogyny. They're creating, it's almost like a fake adversity or fake conflict for them, because the majority of the people that disagree with them they're none of those things, and they actually have actual, authentic, genuine conflict for the person holding those viewpoints that person is avoiding like the plague. Because I think in the end, if they had to confront that, it would maybe make them change their principles a little bit. You know, and one of those principles possibly being like, I stand for whatever the current thing is. You know, like whatever the current social mass, whatever the current flow that the mass is in. That's what I support, because we're a collective society, and collectivism is better than the individual. Well, if that's a principle you stand on, I mean, you got to bring that to the table.
Facebook should have an opt-in option for people to just opt into the NBC programming line. So like,
and it just changes your profile picture.
Yeah, it automatically changes your your
It has a bot to update your statuses.
No, it'll hashtag like, don't you can just upload, like, you know, just have your pictures constantly uploaded, and like we'll pick out like a good photo that's relevant for that. Like, don't worry, man, you don't even have to be on social media. Everyone else will just be seeing it, and it'll just be everyone's become a bot. That's where it's at. Where you go on Reddit, you can't tell the bot from the NPC. They're all the same thing. It's the same thing. That's the scary part. You know, that's the Socrates unexamined life. Like, it's I was saying this to a friend earlier. I'm like, I don't understand. I can't relate to these people at all who just switch between these temporary profile pics. It's just it's so far from what I was thinking.
Mindless is what it is. It's just so automatic.
100%.
And then you have the ones going out and picking out, you know, you can't just have the normal blue and yellow for Ukraine. You got to go out and find like kind of a faded blue and kind of a hatched yellow. You know, you have to put your own little unique spin on something that's completely ubiquitous and not the opposite of unique. It's amazing. Amazing. Yeah, I don't understand them either.
It's dude, everything is inversion. That's
what's this one? We got a comment here. It says wokesters usually melt like jello on a hot griddle when challenged. Yes.
Absolutely.
Yes. And what is melting is their emotions is what's going on. That's why they rush to avoid open debate and try to silence and deplatform all opposition to their worldview. Yeah, I wonder if they're trying to avoid that open debate because subconsciously they know that their emotional side is prevailing, and they have no logic to argue with. I mean, because that's what happens.
You know, in all of my forays into trying to red pill on social media and just seeing the responses, it's just not even a hard red pill. It's just like a little more, I don't know, authentic. Like we're saying, a lot of the time people will come in and just will chide you or try to derail the conversation. It's never an honest attempt at discussion. And anytime I've tried to, the vast majority end up distracting and stopping the conversation and one thing or another. And because they know, I think deep down that they've lost the debate. But they don't care. Their only goal is to win one way or the other. It's just amazing what some people are willing to say they support while also supporting something completely in opposition to it. But you know, it's 1984, dude.
Yeah,
here we are. I want to kind of touch on the differences between, because I think a common trait of what you would call a beta cuck would be somebody who's overly nice or agreeable, or somebody that's never going to speak out, or like is just the guy that gets walked on, the guy that doesn't get the, is always like, oh, I'm just, every girl thinks I'm a nice guy. Like, I'm a nice guy.
Yeah,
Well,
what that
what's
MTV
different?
gal was talking about, and they never get laid. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, exactly.
It's
Like,
such
why
a
do you
nice
get in
guy.
the nice guy zone? Well, what's the difference between being kind and nice? And I found this video on YouTube. I thought it was pretty
Outward expression of kind versus nice is very similar. Both appear to be good guys, but that's where the similarity stops. One of the differences are from the standpoints that each operates. A nice guy tends to operate from a standpoint of insecurity, along with inadequacy. And when doing nice things for other people, he's seeking validation and confirmation. He does it in a way to build himself up. The kind guy, definitely not so much. A kind guy comes from a position of confidence. He's doing good things for other people from a place of compassion and concern. The kind guy is not seeking validation or looking to build himself up. That's one of the differences between a nice guy and a kind person. Another problem with a lot of so-called nice guys, they're doing these nice things to curry favor from people. Doing it to feel better about themselves.
This guy knows.
It's really about
beta grooming, you can call it. I think we've it's a trait. I'm a nice guy, low key, kind of predatory. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. And
like, all the guys who would say, "Oh, I'm a feminist." No, I'm a feminist. Like, oh yeah. And what are you trying to do later?
I knew a guy who was so he was so willing to just do whatever it took to get laid, and he would just join all these activism, groups. He would lay down on the road. He would do whatever it took, as long as he knew it was kind of the law of probability. He thought, it's like a real estate agent. You get 100 leads.
Yeah.
two of them are gonna turn into sale, the other 98%,
Yeah.
But you put in the work, you'll get there.
Yeah.
Instead of being a genuine person and having an authentic interaction or relationship with someone.
Dude, speaking of that, this is a story I was thinking in relation to that. But one of my roommates in college told me that he literally asked out 15 girls to the prom senior year, and they all obviously they turned him down. He's just asking out random girls at that point. I was like, dude, that's the most dedicated. Dude, I'd stop at 2 or 3. Man, that's persistent.
I had a girl ask me
to
and I said yes because I was kind and felt bad for her, but it was not who I wanted to go with.
Can you imagine being the 15th girl though? I mean, come on though.
Well, she probably didn't know she was the 15th.
Yeah. Oh yeah. By that point, word got around probably
yeah, probably.
But hey, I'll give them credit for being persistent.
Them. But on the other side, the kind man is not doing things to curry favor or to seek advantage. He's doing it from the kindness of his heart. Another key difference between a nice guy and the kind man is that the nice guy is modeling his behavior into what he thinks society considers to be a nice guy. He really cares what other people think. That's why he's being nice, to try to define himself in the ways that he thinks society wants him to look and behave. The kind guy does not care what other people think. He's not modeling his behavior into what he thinks other people want him to do. He's doing things from a sense of generosity. He's doing things that he thinks people need from him. And that's a huge difference. The nice guy is constantly doing these nice things because he thinks people will like him more. The kind man could care less whether you like him. He wants you to feel good about yourself.
Yeah.
So true. I like this guy.
I know. I want to look into more of his stuff.
Yeah. He's succinct. So true. And that's the nice guy, probably the characteristic of the beta male cuck. You know, is they're doing things for what they think other people want to hear about them, or
well, and it also makes that so-called niceness or kindness inauthentic, because if somebody's always nice, always, then they're nice no matter what. At some point, you're like, dude, are you just you're never gonna say anything bad about, like, or you know, maybe fly off the handle a little bit to where maybe you offend somebody, which is okay, because if you're offending no one, then you're not being authentic. I'm sorry. That's kind of how I feel.
Yeah, that's true. That's like, you can't be kind unless you have the capacity to be cruel.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah,
again,
exactly.
it's a choice. It's a choice to make.
And then, because, you know, by allowing yourself to fly off the handle a little bit and be a little bit more wild, you open yourself up to maybe I said something I shouldn't have to my significant other or my friend, and then I have to apologize, but also acknowledging that, like, I can be the better man and still apologize, and it's authentic. It's not because I'm being like nice guys. It's almost like the boy who cried wolf syndrome, where that niceness doesn't mean anything. It becomes this flatlined you know, thing that, like, if you're waiting hand and knee on your lady at every beck and call at any time, it's going to mean less when you're doing so-called acts of kindness, because it's not authentic, or it's not genuine, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And you get to learn something if you make a mistake by being unkind and apologizing, because that takes a certain ego death.
It does. Yeah. Because then you acknowledge, like, hey, I can fly off the handle and know that I'll be able to, all right, you know what? Maybe I took it too far there. I was like being an asshole. But, like, knowing that, hey, I know my character. It's okay if I say something and maybe somebody's offended to the point that they don't want to fucking talk to me ever again. Like, am I going to take that as a reflection of my character? Like, no, if you know you've been true to your principles, this shit doesn't matter. And I want to end this series of clips with this guy, Mark McDonald. He's a psychiatrist in LA. And I actually read his book, The United States of Fear. I highly recommend it. And this kind of was what prompted this Cuck, Mega Cuck episode.
Yeah.
Or Monster Cuck, Monster Mega Cuck. Is this guy's work, because he early on in the pandemic was breaking down just what he was seeing in his practice, where he was noticing that, you know, the wife was being a lot more emotional about what was going on and a lot more fearful. And he was seeing husbands who would privately say, like, I don't feel as fearful, but I'm a basically happy wife, happy life, not going to speak out. And as a result, there was an imbalance playing out between men and women. And this is obviously more deep-seated than just COVID, but I found it pretty relevant because, I mean, COVID has been the most relevant thing in all of our lives over the last 2 years. So it really puts it in perspective. And, you know, I'll give Mark McDonald credit, just as a heads up, a trigger warning. The man holds no punches. So he can be a little rough around the edges sometimes. But it's authentic. Again, it's what he's doing. So
bring it on.
That is following it. And that is, if one destroys through recurrent indoctrination, laws, breakdowns of church values and family values, the biological and psychological distinctions between men and women, if you remove the bipolarity of the male and the female, the masculine and the feminine, and you move everybody into a neutered position, which is essentially what transgenderism is, actually, you will inherently destroy the most important qualities that counterbalance the man and the woman and that lead to the collapse of society. And they are, for men, they are courage, bravery, taking risks, going out, bringing something back that can protect.
Yeah, the imbalance between when we're both, we don't know what it means to be a man or a woman anymore. So there's that, equalizing that to some degree and not having a connection to that part of ourselves is it kind of leaves you like in a weird spot where you're trying to figure out how to relate to one another in a situation where gender roles aren't as obvious or clear. And like he said, it's like you're not sure how you're supposed to relate to one another anymore. Like, what's the appropriate thing? Because, you can't be too much of a man because that's toxic. But obviously you don't want to become full on beta, right?
Absolutely. And I think between men and women, forming that natural partnership, it leaves us defenseless against any actual threat that's coming our way. And one thing about civilization is there's continuous threat. It's not a lovely state to be in, but it's a reality. And if you don't have, and the only way to kind of neuter, to use this guy's terms, that threat is to form strong bonds between men and women, and men and women and women, and it's kind of
genuine bonds.
Yeah,
not superficial ones that'll get broken once again that your principles are tested, right? Because that's when the pedal meets the floor, or what metaphor I'm going to use, but you know what I mean. It's like that's when it's actually tested, because those bonds need to be strong through thick and thin. If they're not, it's exposed, and that's happened over the last 2 years for a lot of people, myself included.
Yeah. And this whole other cuckery of this society too is, I swear to God, that's what they're depending on. I mean, we're not the first ones to see this, obviously, but they're depending on that to continue this masking on planes, to continue this businesses complying, even though the government's been shut down and it's been deemed this or that or unconstitutional. But to get the rest of society to push the agenda along itself, because they can't rely on government. Not any government with a constitution anyway. They can't rely on that to push this agenda. They need the citizens to do it.
Yeah, it's and to some degree, like if you look at the lockdowns, all of that shit was never really enforced by law enforcement, at least not in America. Other countries it was different, obviously, but for the most
it was forced by peers.
It was all social, because they knew it wasn't really lawful. And even the law enforcement, despite their crookedness in a lot of ways, we're still like, no, that's not a law. And they'd even admit it. They're like, oh, don't worry, no one's been arrested. Don't, like, it's just basically a suggestion. But then the grocery store clerk, or like the person that takes it serious to make your life a living hell, they're the one. They're it's what I call grassroots totalitarianism. It's not Big Brother. It's everyone around you is already like, they're the Agent Smith. They're the one that is readily, even if tomorrow all of the bad guys in government were arrested or like taken away, and there's no more government, and it's good form of anarchy, not chaos. Those guys are still going to be like, we still have to do it though, like they're not going to give it up. It's part of their identity is to be authoritarian at this point, because it's from a position of being afraid, not willing to take responsibility for yourself. And
this is a constant theme of the show. Sorry to interrupt, but
no, you're good.
It's the inversion where the authority, they were saying that MTV lady was saying that Cuck is used to put power over another person, where it's actually it's the Cuck that is putting power over on other people. It's not calling it out. It's an identifier to me. I use that word to identify certain types of people to you. Males, certain types of males. It's just an identifier. I'm not trying to put a power over. I don't think I've ever called someone a cuck.
No, to their to them. Sure, yeah.
But it does seem to be like a common characteristic of the cuck to exert whatever power they can conjure up over another person in whatever situation. They don't even know these people. And it seems like it's that much easier with the masks on as well.
Yeah, it definitely helps. Well, think about this. Were the brown shirts in Germany and elsewhere, were they alphas or betas? I'd say they're betas, right? Like to get to that point where you're willing to, I mean, they're just going along. They're just following orders. That's a beta move, right? Oh, I was just doing it because I was told to. It's like the cop out, ultimate cop out. And it's clear, clearly, if you're running a society, you want beta cucks, man. Like you want people to just comply until the end of time, because then you don't have to do the dirty work. You internalize that, and that's, I think, to some degree, the cultural subversion that's happened in the West over, I mean, God knows how long, at least since, I guess, the 60s, or whenever you want to pinpoint the influence of the Frankfurt School. But it's the cuckification of Western society has kind of been an intentional plan in my eyes to make it so that people are less resistant, less compliant, or sorry, more compliant. And to some degree that's worked, but I think even despite all that programming, as we've seen with especially Canada, and I think that was why Canada was so impactful, because if you thought of a beta cuck country, you think of the Canucks at a certain point, because you got old Trudy up there running the show, like the cuck of all cucks.
Yeah, he's the cuck king of North America.
Canuck king. I've wanted to do a Canuck cuck. Canuck cuck.
The Canuckin. Canuckin.
Turducken or Canuckin?
Yeah. Robert over here says that the cuck is giving up control. The cuck is a sub, not a dom. But that's in sexual terms. I think what we're saying is the cuck is a dom, or is a sub. It's submissive, but they're submitting to a force or an energy that wants them to then dominate other people.
Well, yeah. Well, that's the whole Marxist trap, though, is like they're playing that oppression card, whether it's with class or race or any of the other elements that can be used in that. It's a power dynamic. So you're using, I mean, think about it. The whole idea of using victimhood and victim mentality as literally a weapon is an inversion of power, because power used to be based on your status, by like, oh, you earn like this or that,
and also physical.
Sure, yeah.
And now we're talking about mental and mental power. Yeah,
and just in general, so like those values are now reflected in how people see themselves. And if you think about oppression, victimhood culture, a beta male, like that's more valuable or looked highly upon in some social circles than the alpha male, because he recognizes that it's no longer his time. It's our time now. And I just keep him on a leash. I'll put him in a cage when I want to go out with the girls, make sure he doesn't leave the house, that's not on that level, but it's basically all intents and purposes. Let's
I meant to say it's a psychological control, not mental. Because when we get into these characteristics or these types of characters, I mean, have you ever known like somebody with a legit psychosis?
Yeah,
they're psychologically dominant. I mean, no matter how put together you are, no matter how strong you are, if you spend enough time with someone who is clinically insane, you'll break. You'll break.
Oh yeah,
and it's that strong, because
that's very true.
When you don't operate in reality, you can get your persuasions from all sorts of different sources.
Right.
And I do mean that in a metaphysical and spirit way as well. But anyway, continue on.
Yeah, let's keep going with Mark here.
So the movement now is to say there's no more distinctions. Women can be like men, men can be like women. And if men are no longer encouraged to act courageously and to take risks, to contain the feminine, which is the emotionality of the woman, and it's good, I'm not criticizing that. Women are more emotional than men. They need that in order to remain connected to their children and also to provide the emotional nourishment to their husbands. They provide an absolutely critical component of life and life force. Femininity is not less than masculinity, it is complementary. But if we tell women that's not what they have, they're not offering that anymore. They need to compete with men. Now what we have is we have essentially eunuchs, men with no balls, and then we have histrionics, women who have no emotional containment because there are no men to contain them anymore. They suffer from a lack of verbal restraint because men can't tell them, look, we better just tone this down a little bit, calm down, you're going to be fine, we're going to get back to this later.
So, and that belies the issue with just always going along to get along. Happy wife, happy life. Over time that your wife is neither happy and neither is your life because you slowly deballed yourself and you've slowly submitted to whatever is asked of you, no matter whether it's reasonable or not, and that's not desirable.
But that speaks to the power of the unification between a man and a woman too.
Mm-hmm.
That if one is, then the other must also be. Robert says, nope, fuck her. Okay.
Because if you say that, you're a misogynist. You're attacking the woman's power. If we don't have those restraints on women from men, healthy, loving, assertive restraint, then women, and I said this for the long time in the last year, women are now out in the street running around Karens, as they say, turning people in for violating ridiculous, irrational rules. Like my friend who went to the zoo yesterday and he was tossing bananas at the chimpanzees and this woman comes up to him and starts yelling at him, turns him into the zookeeper and berates him in front of his children for being a bad father. You wouldn't have seen this 3 or 4 years ago, but you're seeing it now. And it's women who are doing this, not men. It's women. But the men are out there with their masks on, showing that they have no balls. And do you think that that makes women feel safe? I've talked to police officers, female police officers, who say, when I leave my house and I see men with tats and guns, and this is out in the woods, and I see them wearing a mask, this does not make me feel protected. This makes me feel scared. Because if they're afraid of this virus, if they're so scared that they're going to die from this Wu flu, what's going to happen when the bear comes out of the woods? What's going to happen when the rapist tries to attack me? What's going to happen when my children are going to be kidnapped by the man in the park? What are they going to do? With their mask on, say, please, please stop, please, please? They're not going to put their lives on the line. They won't even put their mouth on the line. So I think this is a huge problem, the attack on the masculine, the feminine, the male and the female. And we're turning men into cowards. We're turning women into histrionic control freaks, bitches. And I'm not attacking women. In fact, I think the women are really losing on this. There's more divorce, more loneliness, more sadness, depression in women than ever before. 40, 50-year-old women who are childless, unmarried, crying into their Haagen-Dazs every night because they missed out on a relationship, because they thought that their job was to go get that career and fight off that masculine patriarchy. And the men are all alone playing games and masturbating and using pot to palliate their own pain. It is disaster.
Wow.
Right?
Yeah. Who's this guy?
Throwing it down. Mark McDonald.
Mark McDonald. Good on you, Mark. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I recommend that book. It's very, it's just ideas that I didn't really think about. Like, surface level, I've been kind of noticing some things, but when he laid it out and with relevant examples to current times, and then I see this pattern playing out in so many instances of relationships I know, where I can tell what the guy thinks maybe a little bit more along the lines that I do, but is unwilling to whether to say it with his own relationship or say it publicly. You
Yeah.
know, and it's just like, it's just interesting.
Well, he's too ugly to get canceled.
yeah. They don't need to, right?
Yeah. What's the name of the book?
The United States of Fear.
United States of Fear. Okay, you told me about that. This is the guy. Sweet.
Yeah.
Crazy.
Let's but he has a solution though. And I do think this is I mean, it's a start, at least. It's a starting point for how we can regain that male vitality, that Alex would say.
Well, what can we do?
What I tell people on a psychological level is you can act in spite of your fear. You can take a risk. You can show and display courage, particularly men. Men, more than anything right now, must show courage. They must put something on the line, their job, their relationship, their social status or position in their community, and fight for truth, fight for what's real. And you know what it is. Men know what it is. They just don't have the balls to put it out there. They need to fight. They need to stand up at a local level, wherever they happen to be anywhere in the world. That is absolutely paramount.
Pretty simple.
Yeah.
Drive that truck down to the Capitol and just honk away. That's a start, you know.
That's the start. That's the start. I'm hearing this local. The battle for local is coming to all of us.
So now we're gonna have to, you know, you can hope and flee to Florida or go to, you know, Texas or any other place that you think is a better option. But one way or the other, it's gonna like I mean, if you're in California, that's maybe a different story, but you know,
that's more of a tax situation, I think, than culture, you know.
Well, I mean, dude, they're talking about mandating it for like everybody. If you're an independent contractor, so obviously we'll see if that. I mean, but then again, there will be counties that will just be like, yeah, we're not enforcing that. We're not going to do that. I think they already have in California, no less. So. Again, it's one of those things where, yeah, you're probably right. It's more just the tax thing than like the unconstitutional laws, because you get the right sheriff in town, you can make some headwinds. And if you raise hell, I mean, look at San Francisco. They just overturned, like, how many people got voted out of the school board?
Right? Yeah.
Of all places. And because people took a chance and organized and pushed back, and the same thing with public health, or same thing with you know, like the city council or anything like that, like you can make a difference. And even honestly, as trivial as it is, for me, it's not, but even just saying something on Facebook where you air it out to all the people in your life, where you're like, hey, you like and respect me, I assume, right? Well, here's an opinion that you may not like, but I think you might need to hear. And regardless of if you are offended or disapprove of this, I'm still going to say it because I know it's what needs to be said. And I also want to normalize this behavior for other people, because truly the only way that we can hope to revert some of this tyranny and this totalitarian mindset is to just start being more courageous in every situation we can that's practical and reasonable. Just to the 100th monkey thing, like, you start doing it, other people might maybe start following along. It's the only way that I can see forward from an individual perspective, at the very least. Speaking truth, like Mark said, I mean, it's a liberating feeling in and of itself, but it's also like these are the actual seeds of real change that have to happen. And taking a position on something, not because it's the socially acceptable thing to do, but because it's the right thing to do, regardless of if it is acceptable or not. So,
yeah, I agree. And, you know, there's the Pascal's wager element to that too, that, you know, it doesn't really hurt. Well, I guess it actually, I might be wrong, because it might hurt to just do that. You might lose relationships, but in more reference to making a difference or changing minds, if you don't change minds, nothing really happens. But if you do change minds, you're glad you said something.
Yeah. No
'cause
matter
you
even
wouldn't
if,
have otherwise.
even if you lose 10 friends and family members for one person that says, you know what, I'm glad you said that. Keep saying it.
Yeah.
And it's the ratio. I think. Well, I actually don't know what the ratio is, because most of the people that disapprove are always silent. So you just have to guess.
Exactly.
And so there's probably quite a few, but regardless,
Dude,
it doesn't
even the
matter.
ones,
Like,
even
who
the ones
cares?
that do approve or do agree with you, they're still silent. There's so many people
Oh,
that I
yeah,
see in
that's
real life,
true,
and
too.
they say, "Oh, I saw your Facebook post on that. Thanks for posting that." And it's like,
Yeah. Oh, you've had people say that in real life? You said?
yeah. It's just like, you never know. You never know. My sister, even, she's seen stuff and she references what I post on Facebook, and I'm like, shit. At least I know it's reaching somebody, because as far as I feel like I've been shadow banned, from all my friends and family.
I wonder that sometimes too.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's worth it to be authentic, no matter the cost, because otherwise you're just slowly dying inside. I know that from personal experience. And we don't need a society of people who are just slowly dying inside. We need people that are vibrant, and connected to what they actually believe.
Yeah. We'll figure it out. We'll at least we'll see it. I think you and I will at least see it to a point where it changes one way or the other. Either more people are going to be, fall into the trap and just be, not authentically themselves, living a life, just breathing, or we're going to see more people, start to contemplate and be a little more introspective on what it actually means to be alive.
And I think that's happening in a large scale for a large number of people. You're always going to have the ones who don't, the people that will always obey and capitulate and repeat everything else everyone's saying because of the fact that everyone else is saying it. But I do think there's been a pretty big shift in the situation in Canada, which is honestly why, the Ukraine situation is so frustrating too, because it's like, man, that shit just got swept under the rug so fast, and it was
we never got to see how it played out.
I know. I mean, it's stuff's still going on. It's just it literally took the wind out of those, like the collective, which makes me think a lot of this is scripted and planned in that way, because it was perfect timing. God
Perfect
damn, man, Putin really did a solid for his boy Justin. I mean, come on, and Joe too.
But he did a solid for the rest. I mean, he's just the universal man, apparently, because he did the rest of us a solid by just getting rid of the coof.
He's Trump. Did you not know that? He is literally Trump. Sorry, that's not what I think. That's what I've heard.
Gotcha.
He is. So he's very convenient what you're saying, because he's now he's the Russian. They just rotate between between the orange and the Russian.
I thought you meant that in a different way. My sarcasm years are gone.
Well, yeah. What did you think? Were you expecting to go down this cuck level here?
I mean, not in this way. I was a little more intellectual than I have seen out in the vast space of the internet.
Good. Well, I'm glad to. I take that as a compliment, I guess.
Yeah, I mean, you didn't bring in, although I wouldn't have minded, you didn't bring in Ade Skrillex and Carl the Cuck.
See that we could do for the cuckening too. We could. I mean, we're gonna have cuck throwbacks. We're gonna need to touch base.
Yeah, because we've talked about it in other episodes, not in this term. But we've talked about this problem in our society many times, and it's not going away anytime soon. I think it'll get a lot worse. I mean, we got a whole generation of 20-year-olds out there that are they're gonna have to go through some sort of rite of passage.
Oh yeah, I want to
males go
start helping that process as much as I can. I don't know. I feel for those kids, but
yeah.
you know.
And it needs to be somebody else or a group other than Nick Fuentes and Louder with Crowder and
right. Yeah.
You know, Shapiro. I don't know if those are the right. There's some cuckery in all of them as well.
Yeah, the controlled ops. It's all part of it to paint it as one thing or another. Part of the culture war, make it part of the dialectic. So you argue against your own self-interest because I don't want to be seen as a Republican. I'll keep wearing the mask. But we need less of that. We need more courage and authenticity. And I'm gonna leave it on that note.
All right, let's leave it there then.
Till next time. This is good. I'm looking forward to more of this.
Good deal. Well, we shall talk again real soon.
All right.